And welcome back to National Report. Students at Georgetown University Law Center are now requesting a safe space to express their emotions. This follows a controversial tweet that was sent out by Ilya Shapiro, suggesting that President Biden would end up picking a, quote, lesser black woman for the Supreme Court. Now, this tweet that you see on your screen reads as follows. Objectively, best pick for Biden is Sri Srinivasan, who is solid and smart, even has identity politics benefit of being first Asian Indian American, but alas doesn't fit into the latest intersectionality hierarchy, so we'll get a lesser black woman. Thank heaven for small favors. Now, that tweet has since been deleted, but the controversy does remain. Joining us now to discuss is campus reform reporter Alexa Schwerha. Alexa, talk to us about what follows this tweet. What's happening now?
So I think it's important to note that these aren't just students that are outraged. These are our future lawyers. Georgetown Law is a prestigious institution that trains students to be the next generation of top lawyers, and it's these next top lawyers that instead are demanding a place to cry. They're demanding free snacks, and they're demanding excused classes so they can do a sit-in protest to call for Shapiro's termination. Now, as you said, the tweet has been deleted. Shapiro has apologized and is currently on leave under investigation into the tweet. But that's not enough for this woke mob that now wants to take it a step further and get him fired. And the school is entertaining these students' childish demands. The dean came out and apologized for betraying these students' trust and even hiring Shapiro in the first place. Now, these are our future lawyers, the people who will be interpreting the Constitution and more specifically the First Amendment. And they have to be taught that they don't have the right just to be shielded from speech they don't like. Instead, they should learn how to counter it and develop their own argument to use their free speech to make their voices heard.
And again, the reason why this tweet is getting such backlash is because this individual had been suspended from his new position as executive director at the Georgetown Center for the Constitution. Again, so he would have been teaching on campus, and that's why students are upset. And it has been deleted, and he's apologized as well. But Alexa, this really does stem from the fact that we know President Joe Biden, along the campaign trail, when he was a candidate at the time, had promised to replace any vacancy on the Supreme Court during his administration with a black woman. And he has since gone on to do so and retain that promise, at least. We'll wait and see who he ends up nominating. But what do you make of this sort of decision to honor his promise, first of all, and then also really play into this idea of identity politics, essentially finding a woman and a black woman to fill that spot?
Well, President Biden did make this promise on the campaign trail, but I think it's important to note that the majority of Americans aren't on the same page as the president is. There was a recent study that was put out that shows that 76% of Americans would rather that President Biden pursue all available options when he's considering his nomination. So I think this is something that they have to take into account.
Right. 76% of Americans, I think we shared that polling as well, saying let's keep all opportunities on the table. Alexa Schwerha joining us this morning. Alexa, thank you very much. Have a great weekend. All right, our panelists are with us here as well. Jen Kerns, Bobby Epperly, and Vikas Bajaj. Jen, your thoughts on how this has played out? You can weigh in on the Georgetown controversy and then also the fact that Americans might not want to have sort of a limited box when it comes to candidates.
Yeah, look, we've seen this sort of safe space request play out starting nearly 2 years ago at UCLA in the wake of the George Floyd riots, when students there asked to be excused from their final exams and their final papers, as something that was met with laughter from some professors. But of course, the liberal university stood with those kids in that request. Look, this is the decline of America that we're seeing, where it's more important what identity box you check and what racial box you check rather than your resume and your qualifications. Now, there's something to be said for helping others get a hand up and get helped out. But look, when you're talking about something as important as the Supreme Court of the United States of America, there are more important things than gender identities and backgrounds. I mean, this is just part and parcel of the Biden administration that we're living through.
Bobby, that topic, again, the president's SCOTUS nominee came up yesterday during his interview with Lester Holt, and he said that he narrowed it down to about 4 candidates here. So perhaps we'll have a name in the near future. What are you looking for when it comes to the president's pick?
Well, I'm just looking for someone that'll follow the Constitution because of a black woman, white man. What stands out with the Democrats is that they always want someone who has an opinion on issues. How do you favor this issue? What do you think about this issue? And that is the last thing you should be asking a judge. That's what you ask a legislator. And that's what the Democrats, they think the Supreme Court is just another arm of the legislative branch. They want feelings, actions, activism to rule rather than just following the law and the Constitution. It is tragic that everybody is excluded because they can't check the black or female box for this nominee, but it goes a lot deeper than that.
And again, Vic, as we know, this replacement, Breyer's replacement, will not necessarily shake up the makeup of the court here. But depending on her age, perhaps she would be around for quite a long time and would be weighing in on a lot of Supreme Court decisions in the future.
Well, that would be Biden's hope and aspiration. And, yes, it is offensive and it is racist and it is ethnocentrist to an extent to say, I, as an Indian American male, can never be appointed by this president if I had ever wanted to, or anyone similarly situated, because I'm not black and I'm not a woman. So if forget about all the fancy legal talk, let's just distill this down to what it really is. When the dust settles, decisions are made based upon race and gender, specifically against the tide of what we hear from the left as the mantra that they are against. It's hypocritical, it shouldn't happen, but most importantly, Biden in his comments to Lester Holt said, there's about 4 people, black women, of course, qualified or not, but what he said was these are people who believe in a progressive, not a static constitution. This means a breathing and a living constitution in direct contrast to an originalist point of view. This is the most important part about his comments, in my opinion.
Okay, very interesting takeaways. Thank you very much, panelists. If you could stay with us, still another topic to get to, including the Super Bowl picks.
Look, the fact is that we're in a situation now where, you should have peace of mind. I know food prices are up, and we're working to bring them down. As I said, I grew up in a family where the price at the pump went up, you felt it, and I understand. But these things are necessities. We're working to bring down prices where they're not totally what families, in fact, have to pay now.
President Biden there making remarks for the surging inflation after the consumer price index hit a 40-year high at 7.5% in January. Many critics slamming the president, even CNN presenting this article here. And it reads this: a grim portrait of Biden's unhappy America. Yeah, that's from CNN. We'll bring our panelists in to discuss this. Jennifer Kerns, Bobby Eberle, Vikas Bajaj on these comments here. Jen, let me start with you. Wow, CNN even having to come out and criticize this president, something you don't really see that often.
No, and it's only been a hot minute since Jeff Zucker's gone, and boy, things are already changing over at CNN, aren't they? Look, this is interesting. 70% of Americans, Sean, this is significant, have major problems with how Joe Biden administered his first year in election. We really haven't even seen that number, even in the final year of Jimmy Carter's presidency. We haven't even seen that. But Joe Biden's comments here remind me actually a lot of Jimmy Carter's. You remember when Jimmy Carter in the administration said, oh, just put a sweater on. You don't have to turn your thermostat up. It's going to cost too much. It's going to, be an impediment. So just put a sweater on. That's what Joe Biden's saying. He's talking about, driving down the prices of things like prescription drugs, the things we need to stay alive. Joe Biden can't even drive down the price of a gallon of milk. He's a joke.
CNN pushes even harder than that headline. They actually went as far as showing their own polling. Let me show you this.
Do you approve of President Biden's job performance? Well, look at how bad these numbers are for the president. Only 4 in 10 Americans, 41% at the moment, approve of his job performance. Nearly 6 in 10, 58% disapprove. That's a tough number early in a midterm election year for the president of the United States. Now, why is this happening? This is fascinating. We asked people, what has President Biden done for you that you approve of? 56% of Americans, nearly 6 in 10 Americans. That means a decent amount of Democrats said nothing. They disapprove of everything that has happened.
Wow. Bobby Eberle, your reaction.
I mean, The majority of the people polled think Biden has done nothing. He's done nothing to help them, and he says we should have peace of mind. That clip is just outrageous, and that poll, it shows 36% of independents. That's his approval rating. He has lost independents. 11-point drop from Democrats from earlier in the year. And CNN, the reason they're speaking out, they're never going to support a Republican president or Republican legislature or conservative issues. They are freaking out because they are worried that they're going to get smoked in the midterm elections, and they want Biden to do anything resembling a leader, someone coherent, and he's not delivering.
Let me talk about that. The midterm, something that has come up with a guest on this show, a Democrat that said, I will vote for anyone who stops the mask mandates on children. Lester Holt of NBC News sat down with President Biden, talked about masking kids. Here's what he said.
It's hard to say whether they're wrong. Here's the science is saying now that masks work, masks make a difference, and there's a relationship. I think there's only one governor drawing back immediately, and most of them are somewhere in February. I mean, the end of February, March, April.
Should children be required to wear masks in schools?
Well, look, when I got in office, only 46% of the schools were open. Now 98% of them are open, and they're wearing masks. What's happening is every day that goes by, children are more protected.
Vic Bajaj, that doesn't sit with every single parent in this country.